I am going to start recording now. Holly, I just want to let you know I'm letting Neil in right now too, so he's coming. Okay, so today we have a fantastic group of guest speakers. There'll be 3 people today. I'm going to start off with Holly Butler, who is the program director of DifferenceMaker, and she'll introduce all of the other guests. And DifferenceMakers is a program here on campus. So before we get started with any questions that you may have, if you could type them into the chat, I will be sure to read them aloud. So that way we can just make sure we can get through as many questions as possible, since we only have an hour with them. Thank you so much. And again, just to remind you that this is recorded. So again, we can share this with students who couldn't be here and with other classes. Thank you so much. And Holly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So welcome everybody. My name's Holly Butler and I'm the program director of DifferenceMaker, and we have some other guest speakers who will be talking after me. So you'll hear a bit more about DifferenceMaker, and then you'll actually hear about an idea that has grown and emerged through the DifferenceMaker program, which focuses on fine arts, humanities, social sciences, as well as criminal justice. So some of you may have heard of DifferenceMaker in the past. So we're a campus-wide entrepreneurship program. And what that means is we focus on engaging students in creative problem solving and innovative thinking. So if any of you maybe have an idea you want to pursue, or you see some type of problem that you want to solve, you would come to the DifferenceMaker program, and then we would actually work with you and provide you with the needed resources to pursue your ideas and to solve your problems. And we focus on actually working with students across campus, not just business or engineering majors, but health students, fine arts, humanities, social sciences students, students who are in the College of Education. So we really want all students to engage in the program and begin building up those creative thinking skills. So I mentioned that if you do have an idea you want to pursue or see some type of problem you want to solve, DifferenceMaker has various resources to help you pursue those ideas and solve those problems. So when we're all back on campus, we do have a physical working space on North Campus and in the bottom floor of Leiden Library. So that's an open co-working space for students to use to work on their DifferenceMaker ideas and to begin building up their teams and doing research. We have a mentor program. So people who are experts and advisors in certain areas. So if you have questions or need additional help, we can link you up to a mentor who can help you. We have a variety of different events and workshops to help you actually build up your skills to, better define your problem, do some research around that problem, and begin really developing a solution to help solve that problem and pursue that idea. We also assist with team building. So sometimes teams come up with an idea and they need additional teammates, and we can certainly help you with that. And additionally, sometimes students want to get involved in DifferenceMaker, but they don't necessarily have an idea yet. And that's totally fine, because you can come to us without an idea and we can talk to you about your interests and your skills and actually link you up to a current team that, could use additional help. So whether or not you have an idea, you still want to get involved in DifferenceMaker, please do talk to me because I can help you with that. We also offer funding. So we have college-based competitions in the fall where we give away about $10,000 in funding. And then we have a big $50,000 idea challenge in the spring. So again, as long as you have kind of a cool, well thought out idea, we can actually give you funding to pursue that idea. Something else that's interesting that I want to bring up, it's a newly launched program. It's called the Riverhawk Experience Distinction. So DifferenceMaker is a part of this program. And what it is UMass Lowell has actually seen that our students get engaged in a lot of different activities and courses on and off campus. And we know that our students do a lot of extracurricular things. And we wanted to find some type of way to actually give credit to you all for doing all of these extra things. So if you get involved in the RED program, RHED, for the Riverhawk Experience Distinction, you take 2 courses in one of these areas, and the approved courses are all online. So whether you're interested in leadership, entrepreneurship, global engagement, or community engagement, so you take 2 classes in one of those areas and then 2 experiences And then when you graduate, UMass Lowell actually gives you an official designation on your transcript so that you can add this to your resume. You can, when you're applying to jobs, they can actually see that you completed this distinction and have specific skills and expertise in a specific area. So this program, if you get engaged with it, really helps you to learn new skills and also gives you a competitive advantage when you get on the marketplace. And so the website, if you're interested in learning more, is just uml.edu/rhed. And then questions about, getting involved in the program, you can just email them to rhed@uml.edu. And so a lot of times students think that, once you get involved in DifferenceMaker, you're married to that idea. And you're not. There's a lot of other benefits to getting involved in DifferenceMaker. Obviously, winning funding and pursuing your idea and implementing something longer term is a great benefit, but getting involved in DifferenceMaker and our events and competitions also helps you to build up your network. We have a lot of high-level individuals, VPs of companies, CEOs of companies, experts in certain areas. So it really helps you to build up your network. We've also had some students who get involved in DifferenceMaker actually gain job opportunities from meeting those people and building relationships with those people. It's also a really safe place to fail. So you're using someone else's money and resources and trying something and building new skills. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay. It's a safe place to fail. We can, help you with something else, or you can move on to something else. Gaining access to mentors, which I mentioned before, learning how to build up a team and work in a diverse team. So whether it's students from your same major or maybe from another college or another discipline. We've had a lot of friendships and even some marriages come out of DifferenceMaker, believe it or not. So it's a really good place to meet new people. You can build up your time management skills, verbal and written communication skills. We also teach students how to develop a really interesting and compelling presentation. We help you build up skills as far as learning how to sell an idea. So sometime when you're applying to internships, co-op positions, and jobs, you're gonna have to be able to sell yourself to get a job. And then when you're in a job one day, you might have to actually sell an idea to a supervisor or manager. So building up those skills is really nice to have, and DifferenceMaker helps you with those things. And then also teaching you how to dress for success. And then I talked about the RED program, so getting that official designation on your transcript. So if you are interested in learning more about DifferenceMaker, we have a kickoff event and college competition announcement coming up on Monday. So if you're interested, you can register uml.edu/2020 DM kickoff. The event is from 5:30 to 7:30, and you'll learn more about DifferenceMaker. We're going to do a fun virtual activity with breakout rooms so you can meet new people. We'll have advisors and facilitators in all of the different rooms, and you'll begin talking about problems that maybe you're interested in solving as well as your ideas. So that's a great place to start, coming to the kickoff event. At the kickoff event, you'll also learn about the 2 college-based competitions that we have going on this fall. One's based out of the Manning School of Business, which is sponsored by a bank called Digital Federal Credit Union. They're looking for ideas specifically around banking and finance. So if you have ideas around that or want to talk to me more about that and brainstorm, I'm happy to do that. And then the Francis College of Engineering, they're looking for any idea, but you have to build some type of prototype or some type of mock-up. It doesn't have to work. It can be made out of cardboard. It can be some type of sketch made in PowerPoint, but they want an idea and then something that you can actually showcase as well. So applications for those competitions open next Monday, September 21st, and they close a month later on October 21st. And you can learn more about those online, uml.edu/college competitions. And a cool, new, interesting event that we're launching this semester is actually around the current pandemic that we're living in. So the Kennedy College of Sciences actually wanted to host this event to hopefully engage students across the entire university. And at this event, we're actually going to have researchers in the area of COVID-19 talking about all of the problems being caused by this pandemic. The economy, health, education, for example, crime rates, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to being in the College of Fine Arts. So we're going to have some researchers talk about this. We're going to do another fun virtual activity with some breakout rooms. and really just begin brainstorming, how can we begin to help solve these problems. So that event is on November 11th from 5:30 to 7:30, and you can register for that, uml.edu/2020 COVID hack. And then lastly, if you do have ideas and you want to get involved even further, we have the $50,000 idea challenge, which just gives you additional resources and opportunities to help you out. And applications for that open December 1st, and then they'll close usually in mid-February of 2021. And you can learn more about that on our website as well. So next up, we have some guest speakers that will actually talk about an idea that it actually started before DifferenceMaker. They leveraged DifferenceMaker UMassel resources, and it's called Operation 250. But before introducing Tyler and Professor Shortland, I did just want to share our contact information at DifferenceMaker. So we're on all social media platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. We have our website, and then we also have our email address. So I am happy to take a couple minutes of Q&A, but I do want to make sure Tyler's presentation, he can get through that. So maybe just a couple of questions now, and then I can pass it off to Tyler.
I don't think we have any questions right now in the chat, but I did want to remind all the students too that since I am recording this, all the contact information will also be linked up this week in our Blackboard folder.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So if you do have questions, you can always reach out through our contact page. You can chat them in. I can answer them throughout the presentation. But the exciting part of this presentation is really learning about an idea that immersed and has really made a difference in the world, called Operation 250. So I want to introduce Tyler Cote, who helped formalize that idea and is actually working full-time. He helped to develop the idea into a formal nonprofit entity. So he's here today to share more about Operation 250, as well as his experience through DifferenceMaker. And then Neil Shortland is actually a DifferenceMaker faculty fellow. So he has really helped and been instrumental in developing the DifferenceMaker program, and also engaging fine arts students and criminal justice students. So Professor Shortland is here today as well. So thank you, Tyler and Neil, for being here, and I will pass it off to you both.
Great. Thank you, Holly. I know, and thank you, Professor Morabito, for bringing me in as well. I appreciate it. So Holly, thanks for running down DifferenceMaker. Definitely will help kind of frame where we came from. But here, I'm actually going to share some slides as well. So let me do this. Everybody sees that, I hope. So really what I want to go through today is give you all a rundown, a little bit of Op 250, a little bit of where we came from, but I also want understanding that a lot of you are probably freshmen, sophomore at the university, just getting introduced to DifferenceMaker. I also kind of want to run down a little bit about myself and kind of my experience with as a fine arts, humanities, social science student when I went through, how that can lend to DifferenceMaker in different ways, and how kind of I use my education to kind of further my experience in DifferenceMaker as well, and eventually leading me to running and starting the organization Operation 250 with a couple of my colleagues. So I know Neil, Dr. Shortland is somewhere in the 84 participants here today. I told him that whenever he wants to jump in, he's more than welcome. So you may hear him jump in every once in a while if he has any comments or questions as well.
Tyler, I just made him a co-host so he can jump in on any time he wants.
All right, sounds good. Maybe dangerous to do that, but
I don't think there's anything dangerous about giving me the floor.
So that is Neil. Thank you, Neil. So guess we can get started. Another thing, we just got some new images, so let me know if you guys like them. They'll be kind of scattered around. But so Operation 250, just give you an idea of who we are, what we do. educational organization. We work with students, teachers, and parents, teach them about online safety, how they can stay safe from threatening materials and individuals online. I'll tell you a little bit about what we were when Holly kind of referenced it, what we were before we started Difference Makers, and then where we are today, how that has really changed. And part of that is the nature of kind of where we started and how we started, and then also the nature of just how things have changed over the last handful of years. So myself graduated from the university in 2017, December 17. I did Difference Maker in the spring semester of 2017. I was a criminology and justice studies student, had a concentration in Homeland Security. I was also a political science double major as well. So I hope that I understand that maybe there are some that are taking this as a gen ed. Some of you may come from North Campus, but I hope that my experience from a South Campus perspective can still lend a little bit to kind of what you guys may be able to bring to Difference Maker, or maybe even collaborate with some of your classmates who are part of are a South Campus major. First of all, for any of you that are on South Campus or criminology, justice studies, or political science, I do want to say that I know I went through the orientation before I came to school as well. That was part of Difference Maker. I definitely thought that this was a engineering or sciences only type program at the university, and kind of zoned it out even at times. Sorry, Holly, and didn't really think about it. But it really wasn't until I really started to look in about my education and think about some of the things that I want to do with my career, which I will get into some of the things that I definitely think some of you should start thinking about as well, that really brought me back to Difference Makers later on in my college career. So again, my perception as a FAHSS student, you know, whether you're crim, poli-sci, soc, psych, I took classes that fell in through all these. You know, there's the idea that, you know, you're going to become a cop, or you're going to become a lawyer, or you know, a researcher, go work for a think tank, or a politician, congressional aide, professor, judge, any of those things that you're going to fall into kind of, you know, these different buckets that almost feel like they're predetermined for you, and that there's only so many places you can go when you're a FAHSS major. But kind of what I learned in my time at school was that just because those are some of the ideas and some of the places that you feel like you should be heading, and some of the careers that you should be going down, and if those are the ones you're interested in, then absolutely go for it. But it doesn't mean that you need to be held to those potential jobs or into those potential careers. There were a handful of different things that were at play in my decision making and thinking as well, and some of those elements really came down to what I found to be really important. One thing that I really wanted to do when I was in school was I wanted to do something that with my career that had to do with prevention. I wanted to kind of be on the front lines, wanted to do something that was addressing some of the problems before they became problems. Through your schooling, you guys, especially for South Campus majors, because that's what I can speak to, you're going to be learning about how there are prevention programs, but of course there are reactionary programs as well. But for me personally, something that I really wanted to be a part of was that prevention. I wanted to be able to identify and solve potential issues before they really ever became an issue at all. And something that Holly had referenced on more than one occasion in her talk was, you know, you don't want to be married to, with Difference Maker, you don't have to be married to political science and CJ, or just your major, and you can definitely diversify and branch out. And that's something that I did. And something that I found very important was I didn't want to just be a political science. I didn't want to just be married to poli-sci. I didn't want to just be married to criminal justice. I wanted to be able to bring my skills into other disciplines, and I wanted to work with people that came from other disciplines as well. I wanted to be able to learn about what their skills were, and how can we combine those two skills to come up with a solution. I wanted to blend my education and interests. This is something that is probably my number one suggestion for you all, is just as a student, is to find what you're interested in and then take every opportunity you possibly can to really explore that interest. I think that Neil can speak to this a little bit as a professor, in that they are very lenient and they will definitely work with you if you have a very strong interest in a topic. And you can really use your classes to explore some of those interests. So I'll get into on the next slide a little bit about how I used my education to expand my interests, which ended up in turn really helping the development and the growth of Operation 250. Yep,
sorry.
go ahead.
Ah,
No,
thanks,
go ahead.
Bud. Hello, everybody. I'll probably introduce myself fully later. I think I'm currently planning a splinter presentation that I'll follow this one with. But no, the one thing I'll say about Tyler's point here is, I think as a university, and you'll learn this, you know, we have a lot of avenues if you want to advance or focus your studies from an academic sense. So, you know, if you have a specialist interest, there are small honors sections, there are research positions, there are emerging scholars positions, there are research assistantships, and they can allow you to, you know, take a topic that interests you and delve into it from a theoretical or a science position. And I know, Tyler, you did an honors thesis, so you know that very well. But what I think DifferenceMaker does is it's almost the real world or the business side of that. So it's the one real opportunity on campus to actually explore something that interests you, but from a business or applied kind of standpoint. So I think it's a very nice, I see it almost as mirroring. You know, if you're fascinated by an area of criminology, you can go and study it with, you know, a professor in detail. Difference Makers is the same concept, but it's more that if you want to learn or investigate the idea of creating a product or a campaign, as you know, Tyler will talk about, you know, that's what it's kind of an avenue for. And the other thing I'll second from what Tyler said earlier is, you know, I mean, Tyler, you haven't said it yet, but you know, Op 250 is a non-profit. So you're a socially orientated educational non-profit, which, I mean, from a business standpoint, it sounds like it doesn't make anybody any money. And yet, you know, you win DifferenceMaker because it's socially relevant and has a real world impact. And so I think almost with everything going on in the world at the moment, you know, this may be the most relevant difference maker for the social sciences, because everybody in the world around us is talking about large scale social problems that don't just need technology. They need people-centric solutions stemming from social sciences, stemming from criminology. So that's really how I see DifferenceMaker kind of adding to the educational value here, is that it's your one opportunity, and it's a really good infrastructure, and we'll talk about it later. But it's your one opportunity to almost explore, you know, the business of an idea and the real world of an idea alongside kind of your academic studies. And so that's, I think it's a really nice way, as Tyler says, of kind of blending education with interest, because you get to almost, you know, create an idea and see if it floats. Right.
And it kind of, to what you touches on the final point as well, where as a social science or fine arts humanities social science student, you know, for me personally, I wanted to be involved somewhat in Homeland Security. Homeland Security, I mean, it's one of the biggest, Department of Homeland Security is one of the biggest agencies in DC. It expands and it addresses so much that it can be anything from there, as you can see, youth behavior, which is something that we deal with a lot, to hardware system building. And so that touches on some of the, if any of you are North Campus majors, engineers, where you can be involved in something like Homeland Security, which kind of at times feels like it's a CJ relevant, CJ specific topic, but it can expand into many, many different things. So for me personally, the way that I kind of went at those four elements, prevention, me and my team were able to identify that threats online and unsafe decision making can lead to issues related to hate and extremism. So what we wanted to do was design an educational program that focused on all youth to talk about online decision-making, understanding of threats online, understanding of unsafe decision-making, understanding of some of the content, digital literacy online, how to react, how to talk to others about issues like this. So what we want to do is design a program that could talk to and focus at all youth so that they're able to identify some of these threats and make the correct decision. With the diversity, which goes back to what I had on the last slide with not wanting to be married to just CJ and poli-sci, developing that program meant that we needed to bring in something from an education side. We need to delve into kind of a psychology piece of it all, which Neil being, we've worked a lot with Neil over the last handful of years. Him being a forensic psychologist helps. And then of course the technology. You know, when we're talking about online decision-making, online hate, online extremism, technology clearly plays a big role, and that's something that we really need to have a greater understanding of. With the education and interest, for me, almost every paper in classes I did somehow addressed some of those issues, an issue that was relevant to Op 250. I remember when I was taking a civil liberties class for political science, I did my paper about students' rights in classrooms and students' rights in schools. You're getting down to trying to understand the whole problem as it is from all different angles. So I definitely recommend, I did my honors thesis relevant to CVE and counter narratives, which is related. If you have any questions about that, you guys can reach out to me. I'm not going to get into it too much, but then I did an internship, which one of the things that I was really interested in doing in my career was going to work for a think tank before really Op 250 took off the way that it has. But when I went to my internship, the thing that I did was study programs and research programs like Operation 250. So I was really able to explore my interests and learn, kind of use my education as a way to learn and develop and grow Op 250, grow my interest in Op 250, grow my interest in some of the problems that are associated with Operation 250. So then last but not least, with Homeland Security, wanting to be involved. When we started, I'll get into this soon, there was a small subset within Homeland Security and within counterterrorism called CVE, which technically means countering violent extremism, but it's kind of this idea of using soft measures to prevent violent extremism, which allowed us, myself and my team, to kind of think about innovative approaches, a prevention approach, pulling in different ideas and kind of diversifying some of the disciplines to develop something that could be a soft approach and innovative approach to stopping hate and extremism online. So of course that's just me, but big picture, I do recommend some of you, if you're interested in kind of asking yourself some of these questions, kind of the big questions of, you know, do I really want to go hard into CJ, or do I really want to go hard into political science or psychology? Do I really want to go hard into prevention? Am I more interested in government work? It's important to really think about those questions now, and that can really help you navigate your college career as a student. So for us, I'll get into, now that you kind of have an idea of some of the questions that led to our development of Op 250, I'll get into actually developing Op 250 now. In 2016, when I was a junior, I enrolled into an internship with Dr. Neil Shortland called the Peer-to-Peer, which was a competition through the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the competition at the time was develop an online program that counters ISIS. Now, this gets in a little bit of what I had mentioned of where you can see the way that our program has changed from 2016 to what it is now in 2020. So what we did was we developed a mostly online program that was, you know, basically answered questions about what is, who is ISIS, what are they trying to do. Here are some educational resources for students. Here are some educational resources for teachers, or common questions from parents, things like that. We ended up filming a video, which you can find on our website, which I'll give to you towards the end. And we submitted it to the Department of Homeland Security. At the time, there was about 10 of us, and they loved it, and they invited us down to DC to present this idea. Might I add that this was taken for credit. This was a class project that, as we continued, really started to grow a little bit. And as we got into 2017 and we finished third in that peer-to-peer program, we decided we really wanted to continue, which ended up bringing us to DifferenceMaker. Now, when we ended up doing the campus competition, not the college competition, which takes place in the fall. We ended up doing that the spring of 17. Were awarded the campus-wide Difference Maker, and ended up, which came with $6,000, came with about $1,500 of legal fees, which actually helped us get our 501c3 nonprofit designation. That was massive for us, because doing Difference Maker for us was incredibly important in the sense that we were moving from we are a class, just psychologically, mentally moving from we are a class project to we are a business. That hurdle, while it seems incredibly easy, was one of the more challenging things for us. Because that can change your mindset in terms of how much time you want to put into it. How serious are you into trying to achieve some of the goals that you're trying to achieve? Is this something that you're just passively working on or actively working on? And making that change and working with difference makers to get us mentally to change our thinking towards that was incredibly important. We worked with Dr. Neil Shortland to develop relationships in the field, which ended up really coming through in our next and kind of the next step in our growth. And Difference Maker was we were fortunate enough to be connected with some funders within the Difference Maker network, which really allowed us to grow our program further. Everything from paying for gas for us to go to classrooms, to really helping us bolster our online program, and whether that is making it look good or really giving us the opportunity to spend more time researching and making sure everything we're putting online is factually correct, making sure everything that we're putting online is the most critical and digestible information possible. And then finally, when we got towards the fall and winter, that's really of 17, that's really when we started rolling the program out into classrooms. When we got into 2018 and we really started to deliver our program more, we started, as that very tiny picture shows, that's us co-hosting a conference on campus that had upwards of about 150 community leaders there. We were able to really start delivering that program and growing the program more. But most importantly, we ended up being awarded a NIJ, National Institute of Justice grant, to measure our educational program, measure the preventative program that we kind of designed. On that grant, we are includes some of the relationships that we were able to grow with Neil. Georgia State University, Harvard, the School of Public Health, and then of course the Center for Terrorism and Security Studies with UMass Lowell. And really the goal of this study is to measure this program that we developed, that we had been developing for so long, where students will receive, a 35 to 40-minute lesson on hate, learn about the in-groups and out-groups, some of those grassroots issues that lead to prejudice and othering and discriminations. And then they'll receive a lesson on online behavior. Students learn about risky decision-making, online disinhibition, how to understand mis and disinformation. And then the students partake in problem-solving activity, where the students are able to reflect on some of the problems that we discussed through the workshop, which take upwards of 3 hours in class time. And then they're able to reflect how those problems impact their own community and come up with their own solution to those problems that they can roll out themselves. So that's the program that we're currently measuring. This is some evidence of us actually delivering the program in different kinds of schools. You know, you see the top left, that's to about 140, 170 students. The bottom, or the one to the big picture to the right, is with only about 20 kids, maybe even less in a classroom. So we have really learned that our program needs to grow and needs to be able to be delivered in different kinds of ways. Everything from a very hands-on, peer-to-peer, small-scale size to something that needs to really bend to the school and be something that can be delivered to 170 kids all at once. And that really led us to where we are now, which is continuing to grow that program and continuing to offer workshops not only for students but for educators as well. And we're really starting to undergo those measurements as part of the NIJ from that relationship that Neil has been was instrumental in helping us to put together. So to date, we're starting to see signs of effectiveness and improved online behavior in 7th and 8th graders, which is great. Some of those workshops, of course, were sidetracked due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as a lot of those were planned for last spring, but hoping to, again, start delivering those virtually here in the fall, which will be great. And, you know, to date, we've run programming with over 1,800 students and teachers in Massachusetts alone. That can be as young as, we've gone as young as 2nd grade, which is quite young. And that's definitely something. When we started the program, we were not thinking this is going to be a program that can be delivered to 2nd graders. But through the years, and as we started to learn more about the program and learn more about some of the disciplines that we are trying to pull together into this one educational program, we understood that we need to be able to deliver something. We need to be able to deliver this education to everything from 7-year-olds to 17-year-olds. And of course, all the way through high school. So I'm not going to go through all of this here, but, you know, Operation 250, everything from teacher trainings and student workshops, it's definitely grown. As in the beginning of our presentation, we were, in the formation, we were the kind of focusing only on countering ISIS, because that's what that class project and the peer-to-peer program was looking for. But as we grew, we changed. And that's something that as for all you students that are interested in getting involved in DifferenceMaker, be willing to make those changes and be willing to change your program if you need to. That's a massive step, and it's something that we did, and it was the best decision that we ever made. Being able to really expand out and take a step back and view our program as, you know, let's focus on online safety. Not only does that address everybody and address everything, but it allows us to tackle issues, everything from grooming online to hate group recruitment. So be, as Holly had mentioned in her talk, you know, be willing to fail. This is a place that you can fail. And just in our time as working with difference makers in the spring of 17, we were making that transition of, well, let's not be just, you know, counterterrorism. Let's expand this further. Like, let's be the, you know, let's be a school safety program. Let's be an online safety and internet education program. And that's really when we were starting to grow and start to change. So I recommend for all of you that are interested in getting involved in 250 or in DifferenceMaker, be willing to fail. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. That's my email. I'm happy to talk to you about our experience with DifferenceMaker. Happy to talk to you about my experience as a student at UML, if you're interested in kind of learning how to kind of navigate as a fine arts, humanities, social science student and work difference makers are wanting to explore what your interests are. So feel free to reach out to me, email, or on my website there. Neil, sorry.
Tyler, I have planned an entire second presentation based on all of the things that I think you didn't say. And as per usual, I'd like to congratulate you on giving a presentation when you actually fail to communicate the immense number of things you have achieved yourself. So congratulations. Your humility is infuriating. So here's my view of this. And so we have a 4-year journey here. And I think we need to break it apart in terms of the organizational journey and then also Tyler's personal journey, and look at how DifferenceMaker has helped in both of those. So like Tyler said, 4 years ago, he basically took part in an internship that I run, which was this idea of kind of, create a social movement or social campaign that is aimed at basically improving or minimizing or somehow countering hate in our society. And Tyler actually was the original Op 250 vanguard of the idea, because the entire program stemmed from kind of a story he told about how after I think it was the Boston bombings, no one at school could talk to him about terrorism. No one had the answers because, if anyone takes any of the terrorism courses, we'll spend all day boring you by telling you how complicated and confusing it is. And, that's tough for people in the real world to talk about. I see it all the time. I see the word thrown around wrongly. I see people scared to have the conversations. And so Tyler 4 years ago had this idea of, wouldn't it be nice to basically help people, specifically teachers and parents, have these conversations with their children around what terrorism is, where it comes from. And then obviously, in the modern world, we integrated the internet into that. Now, if you fast forward 4 years, from an organizational standpoint, Tyler developed a company that has become self-sustaining. It has got a $1 million partnership with the NIJ, and I'm pretty sure it'll make a lot more money. It was selected by Harvard to be a gold standard or whatever they called it. He featured in the United Nations as a gold standard of youth-led counter-violent extremism. And, there's a case study on his program at the UN level. He now is viewed as an expert in his own field. He partners with the Department of Homeland Security. He partners with organizations all across the state. Op 250 has become a very real and very powerful organization in its field. And it's also been a very, very successful business. I mean, we know the business statistics from COVID, and Tyler has been able to actually run a non-profit and survive COVID, which I think is immensely impressive. He also himself won an award that he doesn't like to tell people about, called the 29 Who Shine, which is an award. Don't shake your head, Tyler. It's a great honor. I was with you. It's an award. One UMass Lowell student per year is given the award. And Tyler was the 2017 recipient, and he got to go to the State House and walk down the stairs to a standing ovation. It was very pretentious. But basically, this immense journey has occurred. And I think it's no small part to do with what DifferenceMaker provided. And I think originally DifferenceMaker it provided almost a goal, if you will. So as Tyler mentioned, they finished this competition and were like, what do we do next? We have this idea, we have this, this energy, what can we do? And so DifferenceMaker was this fantastic competition that gave them a structure and a target and, presentations and all this kind of stuff. But so it did that. But then after that, it's been a very long-term partner of theirs. And the reason is, Tyler didn't talk too much about the team, but the team is, 9 and then 5 social scientists who don't really have knowledge about business and tax and, law. And obviously Tyler now is running a fully functioning non-profit organization in which he needs to know about trademarks, tax, employees, contracts. He has a lease for an office or whatever it is. And so DifferenceMaker kind of provided the resources and the resources, and I think the necessary partners to fill all the business gaps that, you know, we didn't have. Because, you know, what are we? We're ideas people, and that's specifically what young people are. That's why, you know, Tyler mentioned the program that he came through. It was all about getting young people to come up with ideas, because they realize that young people are far more innovative, far more on the pulse, far more engaging and exciting than their 50 to 60-year-old corporate or government working counterparts. But what are they lacking? Well, young people are lacking infrastructure, knowledge, support, any form of business acumen. I mean, I'm still lacking most of those things. So that's kind of what Difference Makers provides, is it allows you to basically focus on just the idea, but it teaches you kind of the business elements of it that you need to think about. So if you look at the peer-to-peer was the program that Tyler came through, and I think we have it in writing now that yours is the best peer-to-peer, or at least the most successful peer-to-peer ever done. I think Tony's definitely said it, so yeah, he doesn't want to admit it, but it is. But one of the reasons is that I don't think any of the other competitions had difference makers, and I think that really is a big thing for Tyler. Is that's how Tyler went from a school-based innovation competition to a $500,000 $1 million business. Kind of was through the support that Difference Makers gave him. Now, look, Difference Makers didn't give him $1 million. I personally think they still should, but you know, they did give you access to, you know, Michelle to help with the law. They did help us partner up with donors at UMass Lowell who gave you money to keep going and stuff. And in the early days, these little 5,000s and 10,000s, they go a really, really long way. And they positioned us up to the point where you could now go and compete, you know, and your bill is in the hundreds of thousands, you know. But in the early days, Difference Maker, you know, 3,000, 6,000, the prize monies from these competitions makes a really, really big difference in the early days of a business. So I think it's not a surprise that if you look at Tyler's company and compare it to all of the others that he competed against, some of which beat him, the reason that Tyler's done so well probably is in part because Difference Maker kind of did the business side of things. So Tyler could take his idea, he could take the belief he had in his idea, and he could make the organization knowing that he always had people to help him answer questions around tax, payroll, funding people, you know, helping you get an office in the innovation hub and all this kind of stuff. So I just think in general, it's been a really big part of your story, Tyler, and how you've been able to, I think, make the unbelievably successful organization that you have made. On the personal side, I also think it's a really big part of, I think your transition, if you will, from student to young professional. Because I think if you look at the skills that you develop through doing Difference Makers, and this is where I think it's universal pitches, even if your product doesn't win or your idea doesn't get funded, the tasks that it requires of you, I think, help you tap into what I would call a universal skill for life, which is basically just the art of convincing people to give you money. And I think that there is, you say, I know you laugh, Tyler, but I mean, like, there are very, very few jobs that you will not at some point be asked or try to convince somebody to give you money. If you run a business, you need people to give you money. If you're an employee, you need, or you should be arguing to be paid more money. You know, Professor Morabito and I, part of our job is convincing government agencies to give us money to do our research. This idea of convincing people that your idea not only is a good idea, but that it is a fiscally beneficial and fiscally rewarding idea with a return on investment. That's a universal life skill that you really want to be armed with as soon as possible. And like Tyler said, you know, have a go at it. See if you can do it. Learn why you couldn't. Fail at it while you're here, you know, but there is going to be a point in your life where you need to convince people to invest in you, invest in your ideas, invest in your business, invest in your career and your development. And these are the kind of skills that you don't get in your everyday classroom. You don't get it by doing a scientific presentation in my forensic psychology lecture. You don't get it with my essay-based assignment. difference makers, it flexes different muscles of you, and it kind of encourages you to think about yourself as a business enterprise, to try and encourage people to invest. And I do think that's a really, really important skill, because it's not the best ideas in the world aren't always the ones that get funded. It's the people who are able to convince people that they're the best or their ideas are the best. And that's what difference makers is. It's, do you have an idea? Great. Convince me it's a good one. And I just personally think that those are such important skills to practice and to give to students early in their development. Because I just think throughout life, you're going to be put in these very kinds of situations. And I think the other thing about Op 250 that I think is important is that it does kind of, and like Tyler mentioned it, and I alluded to it earlier, it shatters the illusion that, you know, this is a business thing. I mean, Tyler, you stood on stage with, I can't remember now, but I know there was probably a prosthetic limb up there. There was probably, there's always a nursing school, a lot of business schools, you know, all these tech things promising return on investment and promising, you know, to give money back to its investors and how much money it's going to make when it sells a certain amount of profit or whatever it is. And I think what's the beauty of Op 250 is that you stood up there and almost gave not an emotional plea, but a societal plea of, you know, everybody is online. The internet is very, very dangerous. Young people are specifically at risk, and we really need to do something about it. And so with no promise of, you know, making everybody bundles of cash, you know, you won the Difference Maker Award. And I think it really shows that there is so much power in a social problem. And I actually think that, you know, that sometimes Difference Makers doesn't have enough of them. But I think now, like I said earlier, like now more than ever, looking at the world around us, and that can be, you know, COVID response, encouraging people to wear masks or encouraging people to socially distance. And I say that as a British person because we don't like doing either of those, you know, or public safety in response to, you know, wildfires in California, or the social justice movement, the interactions of crowds. All of these things are social problems. We don't promise solutions that make you millions, but we promise solutions that make a better world. And I think that's kind of what Tyler tapped into here. And I think that it should be encouraged, especially now, if you think that you have an idea or want to make a difference to the social world that we're living in, prove it. Like, step up to the plate, come to Difference Makers and step up to the plate and put it down. It will definitely help you think about the world from a business standpoint, which never can hurt. But it'll also help you flesh out your ideas. And again, the thing I say, and this is now I've gone all the way to the universal plea. The thing about degrees is, I always argue that your degree is vital and essential. Stay in school, everybody, do well in your courses. But the bigger question is, what else do you bring into your resume? What are the other things that you used this 4-year opportunity to do? And if you look at Tyler's resume, you know, Tyler, you double majored, you did the honors thesis, you did the internship with me, you did Difference Maker, you did the Washington Center, you did the Washington Center cyber scenario. You probably did some other things that I've forgotten about, but it's about adding things to your resume that shows diversity of experience and engagement. And I think that Difference Maker is really one that I think now can be a real benefit. And I think it's fun. I think it's fun to think in business terms, because I mean, Tyler can speak to this. I mean, he literally now runs a business. I mean, he graduated whenever he graduated, and his first job was his own that he created and he now runs. And so he has had to learn to be a businessman. And now, you know, he sells his ideas, he works with partners, he does all this kind of stuff. And he'll tell you how important the kind of the difference maker skills are, even if at the time he probably didn't realize how useful they'd be.
Yeah.
So Tyler, I finished my mini lecture. I didn't prepare slides. I do like your new graphics though. Big fan of that kid in a cage on the cell phone graphic. That's a delight. That's a delight.
Thanks. But no, I thank you, Neil. I appreciate all that. And if anybody has questions now, we can take them as well. But I do want to just I want to echo a little bit of what Neil said, was doing difference makers 1,000,000% makes you think about, especially from a social science and a societal view, makes you be far more critical about just thinking about ways that you can actually make some sort of difference, whether it's small or big. And that's something that we talk about and think about all the time of, is making, what's a success? Is it making sure that one kid doesn't click on something or doesn't say something or, thinks critically about a post? Is it about having, students make smarter decisions online more generally, and whether it's, deciding to shut the phone off when, maybe you're getting a little heated about what's going on online. It's, what is success? But it gives you an opportunity to be more critical about some of the issues. It gives you an opportunity to be more critical just about the world that.
Did Tyler freeze or did I freeze? All right.
So, sorry, go ahead, Holly.
Oh, sorry. I think you froze for just about 10 seconds, Tyler.
Oh, my apologies.
He was probably saying that, none of this would have been possible without the invaluable support and mentorship of Dr. Neil D. Shortland. And that's obviously, critical to all of this.
Yeah, very.
Very, very. But no, I think it's interesting, Tyler, because one of the things I think about as well is from a personal fulfillment standpoint. I think there are probably, and I say this as, someone who's done these with you, there are few thrills like, doing an intervention. And I remember the team gearing up for its first ever intervention. And I think there are, so to actually have created an idea and then to walk into a school, and I can't remember the school it was now, but we spent like a whole day there, teaching online safety, and then we walked out and stuff. I mean, that's regardless of whether you measure the success as we're attempting to do, but that day you did something that positively impacted the lives of 70. Well, let's say 20 weren't listening, but a number of a number of students, and I think that's important. There are few opportunities to really feel the impact of your work sometimes, and that's, I think, in everything. And so I think this was like the being able to launch this company while at university, even if you never ended up continuing it and you weren't CEO now as you were, even if you'd ended up getting a job in DHS or whatever it is, I still think that just the process of building this and trying it and running it and making something real. Because I've run, a bunch of internships and a bunch of these campaigns that have done difference makers, and not all of them have been, well, none of them have been as successful as your company. But even then, just the process of making something and building it and creating something real that's visible to the outside world, I just think it's a completely different learning experience, and it's one that I think is really beneficial to students, and I think it serves a lot of skills in the long run.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent. It's 11:59, and I believe we're ending at noon. So we have about a minute to spare. So I didn't see any questions come through the chat, but for the students, if you do have any questions, Tyler, Neil, and myself are always happy to answer those. So the Operation 250 contact information is still visible for you to see. And then DifferenceMaker, you can always email differencemaker@uml.edu. And I just really want to thank both Tyler and Neil for their time today and just sharing your experiences as both a student and a professor. And then thank you so much, Melissa, for actually inviting us into your class. We really appreciate it. And then just a quick reminder to the students, if DifferenceMaker does seem like something that you're interested in, please do attend our kickoff event on Monday. And again, the registration is uml.edu/2020 DM kickoff. And the registration just takes about 1 minute. So thank you so much. And Melissa, I'll pass it back to you.
Oh, thank you so much all for coming. We really appreciate it, and learning more about the program and Operation 250. So thank you. It's always a pleasure. I'm going to let everybody go. If you have any questions, office hours are tonight. If you have questions about difference makers, you have the contact information for that. And I will put the link up to this class later this afternoon when it becomes available on Zoom. So thank you so much. Bye, everybody.